Someone that overthinks things, they get analysis paralysis, right? They just start thinking and thinking and thinking. They're frozen from their own thoughts, too many thoughts. And so I thought these were good little factors here. And it basically, to me, it all boils down to actually fear. Because if you're thinking, then you're not taking action. And if you're not taking action, then there's no consequence. And if there's no consequence, then there's nothing to be afraid of. So I think that the overthinking can be an excuse for actual fear. And same thing with like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. That's also fear. It's fear of not being perfect. And then on top of that, low confidence. Well, if you have low confidence, guess what? You're afraid. Your confidence is low. You're not sure of yourself. So you sit around and think about doing it instead of actually doing it. And then anxiety. Well, yeah, anxiety actually is fear. You're afraid to do something. And then IQ. Now that might be, I guess, maybe someone has a high IQ and therefore they're thinking a lot. And maybe that's not fear. But let me ask you a question. If you're so smart, then why aren't you taking action and making something happen? So you've got a big IQ, that's no excuse to sit around and overthink things. Especially because if you're so smart, why can't you come up with a quick solution? Why can't you realize that overthinking is actually causing the problem harm? It's not moving the problem forward. So quit thinking so much and take action. How do I deal with fatigue, mental and physical? I rest. And if I'm feeling like just completely overtrained and weak, I usually tell my fighters, I'd say, hey, you just got your butt kicked today. Go eat a big steak tonight, take tomorrow off. You just need rest. And it's pretty obvious when that happens. And so I do the same thing for myself. If I'm feeling horrible, and you can see occasionally my workouts just consist of doing some mobility training, rolling it out, doing a big stretch. That's because I'm just tired and I know it. And so I just give myself some downtime. I think it's very important to know the difference between being lazy and being overtrained. And it's very easy to make that excuse for yourself. And that's why I always err on the side of I'm working out, I'm training. And usually then the next day, so if I feel like exhausted today, I won't take today off. But I will take the next day. But I'll work out today just to make sure that I'm not just being lazy. Yeah. So I'll do another workout, get another training session in, or whatever the case may be. So I make sure that's not just that moment. Because sometimes the next day you're like, I'm not that bad.
Right.
I'm back in the game. The other thing people ask me all the time, I've probably written this a dozen times or more on Twitter, is do I take naps? Mm-hmm. And the answer is yes. In fact, I flew today and I slept probably 2 hours on the plane. And that's a little bit more than a nap, and I'm not on a plane every day. So what do I do for naps? Yes, I do take naps. What I do for naps, and this is something that I learned from a high school teacher that I had, was I walked into his office one day and he had his feet up on the desk above his heart. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, oh, this is really good for you. You put your feet above your heart and it allows the blood to circulate out of your feet and gives, lets your veins and your one-way valves in your veins rest a little bit, and gets little pools of blood out of random places, and it's good. And so I tried it and it felt really good. And so when I was going through SEAL training, when I'd come in, we'd have like a couple minutes in between evolutions, and I just go in and put my feet up, set my alarm clock, sleep for a few minutes. Nowadays, if I can, I'll try and sleep for like 6 to 8 minutes, set my timer on my iPhone. You look like distressed when I said 6 to 8 minutes. If I sleep for like an hour, then I'm up for too long at night. I won't be able to go to sleep because I get too much rest. If my mind is engaged in something, or especially if my body's engaged in something, that's what's cool about working out. You can work out when you're exhausted. Because once you start moving, it's not like you're going to fall asleep while you're doing squats. Right. It's not like you're going to fall asleep while you're doing pull-ups. Yeah. You're just going to do the pull-ups. You're just going to do the squats. And when you get done, you'll be tired. You go to sleep. Right. What's hard to do, and this is when we were writing the book, when I was writing my section of the books, I'd be writing at night, 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, be trying to hammer through it. And sometimes I just fall, I'd be falling asleep. Oh man. So, but that feeling of, hey, I'm just falling asleep, that's not good. So when I'm feeling that tired, I'll power nap. But it's like one of those things where I also like to push through it. So sometimes just try and power through it, because honestly, even a short nap for me will kind of make me stay up too late at night, and all of a sudden it'll be 1 o'clock in the morning and I can't sleep.
Even 6 to 8 minutes.
6 to 8 minutes. 6 to 8 minutes. A 6 to 8 minute power nap can make you feel amazing. It can make you feel amazing. Don't underestimate the power nap. It is a legit fool right there. It'd be interesting to, at some point, for you to experiment with like lack of sleep and sleep deprivation and see how well you can perform. Like I've been noticing that where if I don't get a lot of sleep, I can still perform really well at some physical activities. And then after a few days though, I feel like garbage. And there'll be some physical activities that I'll feel weak at. If you're tired, sleep. If you need rest, rest. Right. And don't try and overtrain yourself. You probably are overtraining and just need some rest. Fear of failure. So obviously fear of failure can keep you from taking risk, and it can leave you just sitting there paralyzed into not taking any action at all. And obviously that's bad, but I don't actually want you to overcome the fear of failure. I want you to be afraid of failure. Fear of failure is good. Fear of failure will keep you up at night, planning and rehearsing and going over contingencies. Fear of failure will keep you training hard. It'll stop you from cutting corners. Fear of failure will keep you working and thinking and striving and relentlessly trying to be more prepared for battle. So I want you to be afraid of failing. I fear failure, but more important, I want you to be horrified. I want you to be terrified of sitting on your ass and doing nothing. That is what I want you to be afraid of waking up in 6 days or 6 weeks or 6 years or 60 years and being no closer to your goal. You've made no progress. That is the horror. That is the nightmare. That is what you need to be truly afraid of. Pride comes from hard work. Pride comes from discipline. Pride comes from performance, and pride comes from winning. And how do you win? You win from hard work. You win from discipline. So that's the cycle. You work hard, you stay disciplined. That makes you start to perform. That makes you start to win. When you start to win, you get pride. And of course, there's a dichotomy there too, because you can work your guys too hard, right? You can do that. We are strong. You are weak. Get away from us. We don't want to be associated with you. I think that's what you got to do. You got to instill the hard work, the discipline in your team. It'll hurt a little bit at first. You got to make sure you don't go overboard with it, and that'll get you what you want.